Hello, everybody. This is your first lecture in Introduction to Programming. In this lecture, we will see that what we will be doing in Module 1, right? So let me write Module 1. This is basically Module 1. Module 1, right? So we have divided the course into multiple modules. And in this particular lecture, we will discuss about what we will be doing in Module 1, right? So in this, we are assuming that you have zero knowledge in coding. You haven't done any programming as of now, and you're doing it for the first time. The language that we will like you to use is C++, though it's your choice. You can also use Python or Java. Python or Java can also be used, right? But we recommend C++. We will come to it, like why C++ is recommended by us. And, very quickly, we will go through all the subtopics, right? So these are some of the essential first topics that we do when we learn to code. We will try to maintain a foolproof understanding of whatever we do. But there is one difference between learning computer science and learning, a basic science like maths or physics. So I would like to mention that point, right? Computer science and a basic science like physics or maths, when you're learning, there is one very basic difference, which I'll mention. In maths, you can question everything, right? So let's say you are, you learn the quadratic formula that x is equal to minus b plus minus b square minus 4ac by 2a. If you want to ask why, you'll get its reason, right? The reason will involve one, some computation will be dependent upon some reason, right? But in coding, what happens is, if you get some question, that will be dependent upon something else, which will be further dependent upon something else, which will further be dependent upon something else. So at some point you will have to, say that, okay, I accept this thing as of now. I'll not get into the reason of this, but I'll accept it as of now, right? But it doesn't mean that you don't question, right? Questions should come to your mind. You should naturally be curious, right? That why everything is happening. But then you should stop yourself that, okay, I'll get its answer afterwards. But it shouldn't be like, I'm not curious, like, so in case of quadratic formula, you should be a kind of student who questions that why this is so, or why, anything like why sine square theta plus cos square theta is equal to 1, though the logic for this is very simple, but why is it so? So this should be your approach. But in computer science, you will not get answers or to many questions. To many questions, you will get an answer. But the one who is curious will become a great programmer. One who questions everything will become a great programmer. I'll give you an example. So in this basic things, there is this, like how data is stored in the memory. What is the basic unit of memory, right? So the one who has very basic, at a very basic level, very clear understanding of how data is stored in the memory, and how function stack is there. When we will be doing this functions part, there will be this, when we will be doing this functions part, there will be something called as function stack, memory heap. The one who has very clear understanding of all this is a great programmer, but who does not go deep into it is not a very good programmer, right? And apart from that, wherever there is no need to go deep, we will explicitly tell you, right? Why in some cases there is no need to go deep? Because if we go deep, we will, be lost. So that is where we come into picture. That is where we will guide you. That is where I will tell you that, here you don't have to go deep, right? So this is one basic thing that I wanted to tell you. Why are we using C++? Because how things are being done in the memory, we are more closer to the memory. We are more closer to the computer memory. Closer to computer memory in C++, right? we'll have more control over the memory. Like now, what does it mean that we have more control over the memory? For example, whatever is happening in the memory, for example, I'll explain it to you with an example. For example, we want an integer variable. We want an integer variable. So in C++, we will explicitly mention int a, but in Python, we will, directly initiate the variable. Now we know that, we are very cautious that in C++, integer is being declared, right? But in Python, we have no idea. Everything is being done by Python only. So we don't get an understanding at the memory level. But in C++, we get an understanding. Then, after in the module 2, you will encounter something called as pointers, right? Where you will have to very clearly understand that, in memory, every memory block has some address, which we can store in another memory block, right? So you will be thinking at a very memory level when you do pointers, and explicitly you will be in C++, you will be explicitly coding these pointers. But in Python, you will not be coding these pointers and all, and everything will be handled by Python itself. And because of that, your understanding may dilute, right? So that's why it's preferable to start doing things in C++. Once you do things in one language, then learning another language is just a game of another day. In 1 or 2 days, you can do things in another language, right? So that is one more thing that I wanted to mention, like why are we using C++, right? Now I'll come to, I'll quickly go through these subtopics. Input output, we should know like how to take the input from the user. So the user is someone who will use our program. We are the developer, right? We are the coder or the developer, and user will be someone who will be using our program, right? So yeah, so we should know if we want the user to enter something, we should know how he should enter that particular thing. And if we want to display something to the user, how we can give an output. Then we will need variables. We will need some variables in which we can store our data. So a computer program basically processes data, right? So there will be some input given by the user. We will do some processing on it. We will do some calculation on it, and then we will give an output, right? So the data may be numerical data, or maybe data in form of string, right? So the data may be in form of strings. Strings is, a collection of characters. So it might be English data, or it might be numerical data. Right? And there can be more types of data, right? So we have to store it somewhere. So we store it in variables. How we initiate variables, how exactly variables are handled inside the memory, computer memory, right? So when a program runs, the computer memory which is in use is the RAM, random access memory, right? So how exactly data is stored, and data can have different types. What is the data types of the data, right? Storage inside the memory, exactly. So this is what we will do. Then, if else. So we sometimes need some part of the code to run when some particular condition is satisfied. So that is what we will do here in conditionals. Then we loops, obviously, computers execute millions of statements in a single second, right? So we cannot write each of those million statements as a developer, but we can just write 2-3 lines with the help of loops, and we can execute millions of instructions, right, in a single program. So that is what we will use loops for. Then arrays, we will need, thousands of variables to be declared, to be used. We cannot individually use those thousands of variables. So for that, we'll use arrays. Then we'll have searching, sorting the arrays, right? So we might need to find a number inside an array. How we'll exactly do that. Then we'll have functions, recursion, string 2Ds. So this is what will be there in module 1. And these are 2-3 basic things that I wanted all of you to know, to remember, to start with. And if you have any questions, you can anytime ping me. I'll be very happy to answer your questions. So yeah, that was it for the first lecture, and see you in the next lecture. Thank you very much, and have a great day.